All right, let's talk about the UN Security Council. They voted today and a vote for a ceasefire in Gaza, and it actually passed. I want you to watch this because this was actually quite historic.
Will those in favor of the draft resolution contained in document S/2024/254 please raise their hand? Those against? Abstention. The result of the voting is as follows: 14 votes in favor, 0 vote against, 1 abstention. The draft resolution has been adopted as Resolution 2728, 2024.
So all that clapping, that doesn't ever happen. The last time the Security Council clapped was in 2003. That was the last time there was applause like this. And that applause was when the French ambassador demanded when was the last time? The French, and it was it was about 2003 in Iraq. Let me just get the exact. Was when the French gave a historic speech against the Iraq War in 2003. So that was the last time that there was actually applause at the UN Security Council. So that was pretty important and historic. They did vote for a ceasefire. The United States abstained. I want to play for you what the U.S. had to say as to why the United States did not vote in favor of this. So the United States was the only country to not vote in favor of this. Even the United Kingdom voted in favor of this. Everybody voted in favor of this except the United States abstained. So what does the United States have to say for themselves? Watch this.
Thank you, Mr. President. At the top, I want to express my deepest condolences to the families and loved ones of last week's terrorist attack in Moscow. We condemn terrorism in all its forms and stand in solidarity with the Russian people in grieving the loss of life from this horrific event. Colleagues, today this Council spoke out in support of the ongoing diplomatic efforts led by the United States, Qatar, Egypt, to bring about an immediate and sustainable ceasefire, secure the immediate release of all hostages, and help alleviate the tremendous suffering of Palestinian civilians in Gaza who are in dire need of protection and life-saving humanitarian assistance. The United States fully supports these critical objectives. In fact, they were the foundation of the resolution we put forward last week, a resolution that Russia and China vetoed. But colleagues, the United States' support for these objectives is not simply rhetorical. We're working around the clock to make them real, on the ground, through diplomacy, because we know that it is only through diplomacy that we can push this agenda forward. We're getting closer to a deal for an immediate ceasefire with the release of all hostages, but we're not there yet. Now let's be clear. A ceasefire could have come about months ago if Hamas had been willing to release hostages, months ago. Instead, Hamas continues to stand in the way of peace, to throw up roadblocks, cower in tunnels beneath Gaza cities and behind under civilian infrastructure and hide among the civilian population. So today my ask to members of this Council and to member states in every region of the world is this: speak out and demand unequivocally that Hamas accepts the deal on the table. Now, I hope I'm wrong, I really do, but I don't expect that from Russia and China, especially because they still can't bring themselves to condemn Hamas's terrorist attacks on October 7th. Just last week, Russia and China vetoed a resolution that condemned this horrific attack, a resolution the vast majority of this Council supported. They have shown time and time again that they are not actually interested in advancing a durable peace through diplomatic efforts, nor for all their rhetoric are they interested in making any meaningful contributions to humanitarian efforts. Instead, they are using this devastating conflict as a political cudgel to try to divide this council at a time when we need to come together. It is deeply, deeply cynical, and we should all see through it. Colleagues, we appreciated the willingness of members of this council to take some of our edits and improve on this resolution. Still, certain key edits were ignored, including our request to add a condemnation of Hamas. And we did not agree with everything in the resolution. For that reason, we were unfortunately not able to vote yes. However, as I've said before, we fully support some of the critical objectives in this non-binding resolution, and we believe it was important for the Council to speak out and make clear that our any ceasefire must come with the release of all hostages. Indeed, as I've said before, the only path to a durable end to this conflict is the release of all hostages. Critically, a ceasefire and the release of hostages will allow much more humanitarian aid to get into Gaza at a time when famine is looming large, and provide an opportunity to work toward a sustainable cessation of hostilities, toward a future where Hamas can no longer threaten Israel and never repeat October 7th, and no longer control Gaza and use civilians as shields, toward a future where Palestinians and Israelis live side by side in peace in two democratic states of their own. Something that will never happen with Hamas, a terrorist organization dedicated to the destruction of Israel and the killing of Jews, a terrorist organization this body still fails to condemn, controlling Gaza. Colleagues, we meet during the holy month of Ramadan. This should be a season of peace for Muslim communities around the world. Just as October 7th, Simchat Torah, should have been a day of peace for Jewish communities. This resolution rightly acknowledges that during the month of Ramadan, we must recommit to peace. Hamas can do that by accepting the deal on the table. A ceasefire can begin immediately with the release of the first hostage. And so we must put pressure on Hamas to do just that. This is the only path to securing a ceasefire and the release of hostages, as we have all called for today. That is what this resolution means. A ceasefire of any duration must come with the release of hostages. This is the only path. Thank you very much, Mr. President.
Okay, so that last sentence there is the beef. This is what the United States claims is the reason why they abstained from the vote. The United States would have abstained from any vote no matter what. Let's get real. But the U.S. is claiming the reason is because the two issues are releasing the hostages, the demand for Hamas to release the hostages, and a ceasefire. Those are two issues, right? The U.S. wants those two issues linked. So the U.S. wanted language in this resolution. Over the weekend, there was a lot of intense debate about this and negotiation. And the U.S. wanted in the resolution those two issues to be linked, that there will be a ceasefire if Hamas releases the hostages. And once Hamas releases the hostages, there would be a ceasefire just for the month of Ramadan, by the way. So even when this representative for the United States mentioned, if Hamas would have just released the hostages, there would have been a ceasefire a long time ago, Israel has made it very, very clear that they have no intentions of this ending just with the release of hostages. They'll give them a break, they said. They'll allow for some humanitarian aid, and then they're going to continue the bombardment. Israel has demanded openly, blatantly, outright, they've said it today over and over, that their end goal is to dismantle every single Hamas, basically to go after every single member of Hamas, dismantle every single Hamas brigade, they claim. There doesn't seem to be really any identification of these different brigades or who these people are. They've, of course, gone after a lot of women and children, mostly women and children. So it's all very unclear. But essentially, Israel is saying, we're not stopping until Hamas is eradicated. We're not stopping until we have all of our hostages back. That is not what they've been saying. They've never said that. But the U.S. demanded that those two issues be linked. The problem with that is that the other countries said, yeah, okay, if we do that, then that gives Israel a pass for everything Israel has done because Hamas hasn't released its hostages yet. But these two issues are not that there should be, yes, a release of hostages, and they can demand the release of hostages, but there also needs to be a ceasefire, because it's not that this bombardment of you is only happening because of the hostages when Israel's made it clear it's not. So you can't link the two and make it Hamas's fault that all of this bombardment has happened because they haven't released the hostages. From the UN Security Council's perspective, and from many of our perspectives, what Israel is doing is 10 times worse than even 100 times worse than what Hamas has done to the Israelis and even to the holding of hostages now. Now, you might say, well, holding hostages is terrible. According to Hamas and the Palestinians, they have thousands of Palestinians who are being held hostage by Israel. So they're saying, we have 100 or so, but they've got hundreds and maybe even thousands that they've been holding on our side. And so that's their perspective of this. But the UN Security Council refused to link the two. And instead, the resolution that they voted on today said, Hamas, we demand you release the hostages. Israel, we demand a ceasefire. And we demand humanitarian aid to be allowed in immediately without being halted or, without there being any restraints on that. They're not linked. You need to act individually. So you don't have to wait for them to do this before you do that. Like, you need to be doing this and you need to be doing this, and it has nothing to do with whether or not the other person did it. So that is what they voted on today. That is why the United States claims that they have abstained from the vote, but they would have abstained from the vote no matter what. The other thing the United States demanded in the resolution was that the United States wanted there to be language that the U.S. would continue being the lead on any sort of diplomatic negotiations or resolution to the entire war, which is ridiculous because the U.S. is obviously failing at this. And it's like going to court and being unrepresented. I mean, that the U.S. is clearly Israel's lawyer and has Israel's interests in mind and is paid by Israel and the Israeli lobby. So the other side is completely unrepresented. But nonetheless, the U.S. wanted to become they wanted words or language in there that would reaffirm that the United States is the negotiator for diplomacy, which is a joke, a total joke. So that is what happened today. That is the breakdown of this. This is what they were arguing about behind the scenes. What they ended up passing today did not link those two issues. The resolution did talk about diplomacy and continued to have those diplomatic relations, but the position of the U.S.-led negotiations were vetoed. That was not something that was adopted in this resolution, so that's where we're at with this. But it was historic. They clapped. We finally got a ceasefire through. Whether or not anything happens from it is yet to be seen. Many people say, well, this is a joke anyway. It's non-binding. Yeah, that's probably, so we'll see how it goes. We'll see how it goes. But there's finally a call for a ceasefire, so we'll see how Israel reacts. At this point, the way Israel has reacted is that Netanyahu has said, I'm not sending my delegation to the United States anymore. I was going to send a delegation. I'm not going to. However, opposition leaders inside of Israel, like Benny Gantz, have criticized Netanyahu for this position. He's losing a lot of political favor in Israel. A lot of people think he's nuts. They do want the delegation to still go to the United States and to meet with Biden. In fact, Benny Gantz said, you, Netanyahu, should go to the United States and meet with Biden, and Netanyahu is refusing to do so. So they have a rogue genocidal leader basically in charge of that country right now. And the United States is not, what do we do? It would be wrong. I want to say it would be wrong for the United States to demand that Israel change leadership, because I'm not for regime change. I don't think the United States should meddle. The U.S. certainly does it everywhere else. So what's stopping them now? But they shouldn't do it there. They shouldn't do it anywhere. But the Israeli people should certainly be looking at their genocidal maniac leader and saying, we need some new leadership and we need it now. That's the latest with that. Let's move on to ivermectin. Let's get to that story. Hey guys, be sure to like, share, and subscribe if you like this segment. Now, you might be wondering, this seems like it's part of a bigger show. You're right, it is. The full show is at KimIversonShow.com. So what you're watching is just a clip. And if you want to get the full experience, then you got to go to KimIversonShow.com. The show airs Monday through Friday, 12 p.m. Pacific, 3 p.m. Eastern, at KimIversonShow.com. That is where you can watch the full show. Here, you just get clips. So click on the link down below, go to the full show, enjoy. Otherwise, I'll see you next time right here. And be sure, once again, like, share, and subscribe. Thanks for watching.